there's so much more to talk about. And it just, it's exemplifies yet another example of the divisiveness that we have in our country. It's just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
How much we have been polarized.
Yeah.
And yet it's okay that people have different opinions. I have no problem with that. We don't all need to be on the same page, but we need to remember that we are all pages in the same book.
Yeah.
So how do we come together in our story?
Is that true, Dr. Howard?
What? That we're all pages in the same book?
That we all can respect the opinion of another?
I think that we can. I think what becomes difficult is when someone tries to make you live out their opinion, right? When someone, like with abortion, I've been teaching abortion for like 10 years, abortion law, reproductive justice stuff. And so like, of course, there's always a bunch of students in my class who are like, oh God, I signed up because this was an elective and like, I'm pro-life and I'm horrified right now. I don't expect that student to come out of class not pro-life and horrified, but I think they're capable.
I bet they're standing up and having a lot of debates in that class.
Well, we talk about the law and we talk about medicine. We talk about myths. A lot of them are a lot of their opinions are informed by stuff that isn't true. And again, I don't expect that to change their mind, right? Like you can be pro-life all you want, but don't tell me it's because abortion causes breast cancer, because it does not cause breast cancer.
What's the elective?
Right? Elective?
Your
This counts as like a social inquiry course.
No. What's your class? What's the class that you teach?
Oh, well, I teach a bunch. Sex and justice is a big one. Reproductive justice is a class I just created and taught for the first time last semester. That's pretty cool.
That's third years?
I think everyone but freshmen, because they have to get their writing requirement out of the way first, make them read and write a lot, right? So like, no one's gonna, and I'm not a philosophy teacher either, right? So I'm like less interested in kind of interrogating the morality of these things with them. But I do find that once we are all on the same page in terms of things that are true and not true, it becomes a lot easier to actually have a conversation about it.
So how do you teach that? Through case law, like through the years of case law?
We do some I start off the class with like sex ed, because I don't know what they learned. And a lot of them haven't learned anything.
So this isn't law school, this is undergrad?
This is undergrad. Yeah, okay. This isn't a justice studies department. So a lot of these students they're like wannabe cops, right?
Got it.
And again, like, I don't know what they learned in school. So if we're going to be talking about like the laws around butt sex, then like, why are people having butt sex? Like, and so it's the same with abortion. So we talk about fetal development. We talk about different abortion procedures, how they work. We talk about, I have a whole lecture that is just about the myths, abortion myths, right? So like, you can believe life begins at conception. That's a purely philosophical thing. When life begins and is meaningful, we can't prove that scientifically. That's always philosophical.
But isn't that more opinion?
Well, that's philosophical, right? So I'm not going to try to convince them when life begins, but like, if they think a 6-week-old fetus feels pain, I'm going to make sure they know that's not true.
So when does life begin?
When do I think life begins?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't care.
Really?
Yeah. Like sperm and eggs are alive. I'm alive before I get pregnant. I guess like a conceptus is alive. Like, I don't know, my cats are over there. If they're alive, they don't have the same legal rights as me. I don't know if they should. Like,
So when you say you don't care, what do you mean by that?
When life begins, I don't know.
Isn't that really the crux of the conversation?
But no, I don't think so. I think
it's a lot of, I think that's used in bad faith.
I think that's, yes,
lot.
I think that is used as the crux, but
it's a conversation, right? It may not be your opinion.
But wait. So as a physician, we know that there's at certain point, the neural net is enough that it has some manifestation of control over the rest of the body.
When is that?
That's somewhere, it depends, really 16, 18, 23 weeks or so. Because at that point, the neural net is controlled enough. And yet, if you were to take that fetus out of the body, out of the mother's body, it's not going to survive. Does that mean it's alive? If you remove something from an environment, that doesn't necessarily mean it's viable. We know that. So where do you draw the line? Is viability when you can survive on your own without any other things around you, at least temporarily?
Well, and like
If
there are
that is the definition of viability, then we can extend all the way. But when a
Extend
baby,
what?
one
Extend
sec, but
what?
when a baby is born, it is now dependent. It can't survive on its own. Does that mean it's not viable? Mark,
Well, is it going to survive? Is it going to survive on its own if you put it down and walk away?
like on The Sims, like on early versions of The Sims.
Yeah, just build walls around it.
Like you put it on the ground.
Put it in
and
the
then-
pool and delete the ladder.
Right. The other thing is, remember, none of these discussions, I think, were really, no pun intended, viable until we had the neonatal technology that we do. You know, I'm not going to put dollar figures on it, but it is so much money to preserve the life of a baby in a NICU. Now, having done a pediatric rotation in my residency, I did a pediatric rotation in neonatal intensive care. I saw what it takes. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. But to say, if we are saying that viability is an ability to survive on your own,
None of us are viable ever.
Yeah,
Right.
and look, and I'm gonna say this: look at the overlap of people saying that, like, the conception, you're a kid, your life is very, very important, and the people who said in January, we had Dave Anthony on to talk about the Omicron surge that was coming. Hundreds of kids died. More
Yeah.
kids died. The majority of kids that died throughout all of COVID died in the Omicron surge at the beginning of the year. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Acceptable losses.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, not that spiritual of a person, but in terms of like abortion and when life begins and me not caring, for me, it's a matter of like, if you needed my kidney right now, Mark, and I was the only donor and you would die without it, and let's just go ahead and add in that like maybe you're like a Nobel Prize winner and I'm like the worst person ever, you're still not allowed to take my kidney away from me. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
Even
And
if it means I'll die. Right. And so for me, it's more about like, can the government make me do stuff with my body that I don't want to do?
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, and I knew we were never going to have time to talk about this. But
well, you're going to have to come back.
When you talk about the 3 states that you're studying right now, it's really interesting that you chose those 3 states. But it's also interesting that there's certain states you didn't choose, Mississippi. And I wonder if we're really at a tipping point now. I mean, COVID was really divisive, right? All of what was happening there was, I mean, literally burning in the streets, lumped one side versus the other. Are states going to secede from one another and create their own independent? And if so, isn't this kind of a good decision?
If
Bring
it's
it, bring
this
it
is gonna-
local and break up the country. Just break it up.
well, I don't like that for like all of the people who I know who are suffering in Mississippi right now. You know?
So what happens in Mississippi
Mark,
right now?
I'm gonna comment on that, because last week we sort of had a peripheral discussion about this, and Tom came up with a point. You know, if we're going to take it away from the federal government and put it on the state, why don't we just keep going down? So we'll take it from the state and give it to a district.
Yeah.
We'll take it from a district and give it to a community. We'll give it from a community and give it to a family. We'll give it from a family and give it to the individual. I mean, it's the logical sequence.
Yeah.
right? If we're going to take it away from the big feds, let's keep going all the way down, which
Yeah.
means we go back to where we were. A person has a right to choose.
Yeah.
But isn't it also, your community?
That was Tom's point. I just want to give Tom credit for that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
That
you.
was
I think
good.
he
And
said
it was
much
well,
better than I did. He said it much better than I did.
well articulated. What was last week? Who did you guys have on last week? Me
We
being
had
one.
Dr. Abby Donovan talk about schizophrenia.
Oh, cool.
Great show.
You know what? I got to listen to that. That's live on our podcast now, right, Tom?
Yeah.
That's right.
Cool.
So look, we're 10 past 9.
Oh, right, y'all are on the East Coast.
Clearly, this discussion. What I was hoping I was going to hear Professor Howard say in the kidney analogy was, but Mark, no matter who you are, I would give you my kidney. But
She wouldn't. She doesn't care. She doesn't
No,
care about me.
I didn't say I wouldn't. I said the government can't make me.
I would.
Right, I know that. I
Yeah.
know that. I know that. I know that.
Fair. And you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, if that's the conversation, then that needs to be the conversation, right? Big government. You can't tell me what to do. In fact, you can't tell me to put a shot in my arm either.
Right. Even though that arguably has like a more immediate impact on the people around you than like choosing to remain pregnant or not.
It's interesting.
Okay,
It's
just
hard,
does
and I know you don't teach philosophy. I know you
don't.
don't teach philosophy, but I'll never forget being in a philosophy class at undergraduate college. I call it university. When I was at university, where a philosophy teacher said, "You cannot be pro-life and believe in the death penalty at the same time. You can't." I don't know if that's true or not, but
To me, it seems like that, but like, I don't know how they're defining life. They like to use the anti-abortion people. They frequently invoke innocent unborn life. It's something I've noticed a lot. And whenever I see that innocent unborn, I was like, how do you know? How do you know that fetus never did anything wrong? No, what
We
I'm
put
really
innocent people to death all the time.
And how do you
Right.
know that that's not going to be Tim Tebow?
Right.
Right,
But also the juxtaposition is that like, oh, because that girl had sex and it's bad when girls have sex, right? So she's not innocent, but the fetus is. And that just like, oh, right. It's about sex. It's about whether or not you think people should be allowed to have sex.
Well, it's Moon Knight as well, right? If you guys seen Moon Knight, right? What they're trying to do is get a god to come back to life who knows whether you're going to be good or bad. And no matter what you've done, if you're going to be bad, you're dead. Just to prevent it from the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Look, Grace, please, when the book is out, we want you
I'll
to
send
come
you a
back.
copy.
I would be delighted. We can continue the discussion, talk about the book, but even more. But we could really be talking about this for a long time. That's not a surprise. Seeing
Yeah.
as our entire country has been talking about this.
Well, it's got everything, right? It's got birth, it's got life, it's got sex, it's got
That's-
family, it's
that's
got
right.
everything in between.
The only thing that for me that has another layer of meaning is that this is even older than Roe v. Wade by 1 year.
How many
Okay.
of those? How many of those do you have?
I got a few, Mark.
Good.
You got one.
I
One's
didn't
coming.
realize you were
9.
on that show.
Yes.
I
Do
did.
you remember that show?
I watched the like re-up
The
of Zoom.
resume. Yeah.
So, like that.
Well, Bernadette was in the original cast. So she was with me. She was actually not the original cast, the first couple of seasons. But I am the first Zoom kid. So if you go to wgbh.org/Zoom50, they've released the original Zoom show, and the first kid who says anything is me. I'm Joe. So there you have it. Who knew?
Amazing.
Grace, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Tom, nice job finding Professor Howard.
Thank
Excellent,
you. Thank you for the
excellent.
lead.
All right, folks. We'll see you
Have a
all.
good
Good
night.
night, everybody. Bye.
Stretch the